Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to String and Story. My name is HollyAnne, and it's my job to guide you to quilt and to live with confidence. Guys, I'm really excited about today's session with you guys. We're doing something a little bit different. You notice I'm, first of all, sitting on the floor. Second of all, wearing yoga pants. And third of all, there's not a sewing machine anywhere in sight. And that's because today I want to talk to you guys about taking care of your body and also your mind in order to bolster your creativity. What we do as quilters takes a lot of creativity. Creative thinking takes a lot of energy, and it takes a toll both mentally and physically. And I want to talk through that with you guys a little bit today. Before I get started, do say hi as you're hopping on. Take a look at the caption of this video for the question of the week, where I ask you about how you would like to improve your self-care. And do answer in the comments, because I, one, want to know and want to be able to provide resources for you if I have anything to share on that topic. But two, you'll be entered to win a 5 milliliter bottle of deep blue essential oil, which we're going to talk about a little bit more as we spend our time together today, okay? Let me pull this video up where I can see who is here with me. So be saying hi so I can greet you. Oh, and you know what? I knew there was something I forgot. I am going to put, I will add this to the caption of the video later. As you are hopping on, many of you know Facebook was down yesterday. It was Facebook and Instagram's largest global outage ever. And I know that there was a little bit of panic around that of, like, are we going to be able to get back on? What is happening? All of that, right? And there's a couple of things I want to share with you guys to that end as you guys are hopping on, okay? The first thing is that if you are not on the String and Story newsletter list, please take this as a loving little push that direction, okay? stringandstory.com/newsletter. If you go to my website, it's in the menu over on the side or in the pop down if you're on mobile. If you go to the homepage, there's a pop-up that comes up. Why is this important? I know that sometimes we're hesitant to sign up for newsletters, right? But this is why newsletters are important, and this is why being on my list is important. What if Facebook hadn't come back up, right? Now, I'm not going to be a doomsday kind of, oh, the end of social media as we know it, right? Like, do I think that that's imminent? No. However, we always have to embrace that possibility. Technology can break. Social media is a huge platform. There's a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong, right? And so the way that you can make sure that we're always connected and that you are always connected with each other is to be part of the String and Story newsletter. I send an email out every Friday, kind of recapping the week, letting you know what's been going on in String and Story, and if there's anything coming up over the weekend. There's usually a blurb in there about Social Hour in the Rockstar group, just as a reminder to come join us. It's something that, you know, I'm not sending you 85 gazillion emails, but I am going to make sure you stay in the loop. And should we encounter a situation again like yesterday where Facebook went down, I would be able to email you and say, fear not, here's the plan, right? All right, let me pause. I want to say good morning to everyone who's with me, and then there's a part two to this thought process. Good morning, Sue. Good morning, Deanna. Good morning, Terry. Good morning, Francie Joe. Good morning, Dana Lou. Good morning, Sandy. Good morning, Lori. I am so glad you guys are here. Love being joined by you guys. Okay, the other thing that this got me thinking about is we've been talking about in the Quilting Rockstars as our group, kind of as a guild for a while, right? And I've been thinking about what are the next steps for that. And my thought and what I plan on pursuing is I would like to see the Quilting Rockstars actually become an online guild. And what that means is we would have a membership site where we could gather together, where there'd be easy access to my blog, we'd be able to do videos together, and we would begin to decentralize from Facebook a little bit because of what happened yesterday. I always want to be prepared that I recognize that Facebook is a space I've rented. I don't know that y'all think of it that way. I don't know that a lot of entrepreneurs think about it that way, but I try to be very aware of the fact that I don't own this space where we are right now, right? I'm on borrowed land. I'm on common ground to some extent, but it's ground that's owned by somebody else. So I'm starting to think through what would it look like for the Quilting Rockstars to truly own an identity as an online guild and begin to move our activities into a space like that, so that should Facebook go down, we're still going strong, right? Wouldn't that be fun, guys? Oh, thank you, Rhoda. I'm so glad you enjoy the newsletter. Good morning, Kimberly. Good morning, Jody. So know that that's something I'm chewing on. I have a number of questions that I have to get good answers to before I can really move us that direction. But that is my plan, because I want us to always be able to be together. And there's some things that I want to be able to offer you guys that I can't do in this space the way that I want to be able to. So my hope and my desire would be that it would actually result in even more awesome content for you guys. So just know that that is part of my vision for how we're moving, and I'm really excited about it. And yesterday, when Facebook went down, I thought two things. I said, well, I'm really glad I have a strong newsletter, and that many, many, many of you are already on that newsletter. And so I was like, you know, I could reach almost everybody via email if this thing doesn't come back up. Oh, sorry. Oh, good. Ian's eating his strawberry yogurt. So I got a text from my mom, and my kids are there. So I always try to make sure that they're okay. So one, that was my first thought. My second thought was, well, if this isn't motivation to get that guild idea off the ground, I don't know what is, right? All right, so know that that's coming. The first step to being a part of that and to moving us that direction is for you guys to make sure you're on my newsletter. So stringandstory.com/newsletter. That's not in the caption of this video yet, but I'll add it when we're done. And again, if you just go to stringandstory.com, there's like 37 different places that you can sign. There's not really 37. There's like 3. There's like 3 different places that you can find it to sign up, okay? Excellent. All right, other things. The caption of this video. If you have not yet answered the question of the day, I do invite you to do so. Now, the question of the day asks, what is one kind of self-care you'd like to get better at in order to boost your creativity? Well, that begs another question. What is self-care? Right? And this is a buzzword that especially millennials, hey everybody, love to toss around. And I think self-care and selfishness sometimes get tied together, and that's not what I'm talking about, okay? I'm not talking about wherever your brain goes with selfishness, right? I'm not gonna go down a big rabbit trail there. But what I am talking about is making sure you do things like you eat right, you move your body, you sleep well, you take time to quilt, right? Life is stressful, folks are making a lot of demands on you, making sure that you're taking time to quilt because your creativity is part of your self-care. At the same time though, while creativity can beget creativity, sometimes if you're like me, when you finish a really big project, you need something to re-energize you, right? It could mean yoga. We're about to do a little bit of yoga together. It could mean that. For me, it involves essential oils daily. Lots and lots of essential oils is a huge part of my self-care, and I'll talk you through some of the why and wherefore of that as we get started, right? So, mobility, exercising, yeah. So Deanna, to whatever degree you're comfortable, what are your concerns around mobility? I would love to know that so that I can speak to that a little bit more. Good morning, Norma. I'm so glad you're here. All right, so there are a few categories. If there are other things that come to your mind, for you, it might be getting a manicure, might be your self-care. That quiet time sitting there, lotion on your hands, getting your nails done, that could be your thing, right? It could be allowing yourself to go by the bookstore and picking up a new book and then hiding out in a coffee shop for a couple of hours reading that new book, right? There's all kinds of things that can fall into this category that sometimes are just leisure activities, but I think it's easy, and I know I struggle with this because being productive is so important to me, right? But we sometimes forget that taking time for leisure, oh, another text from my mom. Okay, and Raisin Toast. They're doing well. They're snacking. That leisure is important. Work is important. Too much leisure is a bad thing, but too much work is a bad thing too, right? And hitting that balance matters. All right. Self-care is hard to practice. I definitely agree. Taking time to enjoy. Yes, Kimberly. Yes, yes. Yes, Sue. And I definitely am going to be talking about mood and emotional management, even as we're talking about physically caring for our bodies this morning. I love that. Okay, so y'all keep answering that. I'm going to step you through these blog posts that I've shared. I've got 3 blog posts that I shared with you for this morning. The first is, why should quilters care about wellness and health? I know this feels like we're here as quilters. Like, why does this matter? I wrote a whole blog post about it this week. And as I already mentioned, a huge part of it is taking time to be well and healthy physically, spiritually, emotionally is going to feed your creativity, right? I am never more creatively blocked than when something is wrong in my physical, emotional, or spiritual sides of my life, right? If something is going, like if John and I have a big fight, this doesn't happen super often, but you know, married people, also like just people dwelling in the same house, right? Also people, right? But if John and I have a big fight, I cannot create until that is resolved. Like that for me, I know some people that when they're upset about something, they can quilt through it, that is their self-care solution, and that is super cool. But for me, if I don't resolve that, then my creativity is just at a standstill, right? So this matters because our creativity and our wellness are connected. They feed each other, right? So first blog post, why should we care? Second blog post is from back in December when my friend April did a session with us, yoga for our hip flexors. There's a video on my blog of that session, and there's a link to her blog where she takes you step by step through the poses that we did together, 5 poses. We're gonna do several of those again today. I am not a yoga expert, but I'm just simply going to do some stretches and talk you through what I'm doing for me and encourage you to try it and see how it feels good for you, okay? Finally, what are essential oils? I'm definitely going to be talking about oils this morning. They're an essential part of when I take time to do yoga and take time to stretch. They're also an essential part of my creative practice. The first thing I do when I go into my sewing room is oils. And usually what happens on Thursday morning is I go into my sewing room before we get on this live together, and I do my essential oil thing, and then I go live, right? I always prepare with essential oils before we spend time together because I want to show up as my absolute best, most energetic, creative self for y'all, right? I'm here to encourage you and cheer for you. And in order to do that, that means I have to take care of me, make sure my emotional stuff is all in line, and then I can show up in order for us to do this, right? So normally I do that before we start. Today though, I haven't done my oils yet. I'm gonna do my oils here with you. They change a little bit every time, but I selected some that I think suit kind of where I am today. I'm gonna talk you through why I chose them. And I meant to bring my essential oils book down. I was actually gonna read some bits to you, but we'll just go off of what I've got stored in my brain since I forgot it, okay? The book that I love is The Essential Basics. There's a link to it in at least one of the blog posts that I've shared with you today, okay? And then finally, if you are interested in essential oils and you've not yet made them part of your life, I linked to stringandstory.com/doTERRA. There's a video there you can watch for Essential Oils 101. You can also reach out to me, and I'm doing a new thing for the time being. It'll be for at least a couple of months. But if you request more information from me about essential oils, I'm going to schedule a one-on-one video call with you. And I say that to excite you, right? I don't want you to be intimidated or anything funky by that. But I realize that I really want to make sure that I'm connecting with you guys as individuals as you're starting your oil journey. So if you're going, I have a lot of questions, or I just want to know more, I of course invite you to watch the recording of Essential Oils 101, but I also invite you to reach out to me via email, and I will give you the opportunity, if you would like to just jump on video one-on-one, that we can do that. We can just talk and say, okay, what's going on that you'd like to use essential oils to aid your wellness, right? And let's talk through what that might look like. Excellent. Okay. So let's see what are y'all's answers here. Mood and emotional management, self-care is hard to practice. I agree. Sit too long in the quilt room, need to get motivated to walk more. Weather is a big thing, Deanna. I wholeheartedly agree. Reaching out when you live alone. Yes, Norma, that's why I value this time together. It's also part of why I want to move the Quilting Rockstars towards being more of a formal online guild kind of model. Because I know that loneliness is a huge issue for folks living alone. Also just for folks that it's hard to connect with people in your area. Maybe you don't have a lot of quilters near you. Yeah, we all need that community. I wholeheartedly agree. Coffee with friends. Oh, I love that so much, Elaine. Yes, yes, yes. Moving, right. And sometimes it's not even, maybe let's not always think of it as exercise, Jody, right? Maybe thinking of it as like, I'm just going to care for my body for a little bit so that I can get back to quilting, right? Maybe we just need to put a different label on it for the time being. All right, let's get started. So I have with me, I brought a nice tray of essential oils. Now, when it comes to any kind of physical movement, deep blue, okay? Which this is actually the special this month, which is really perfect. But I mentioned Deep Blue first because I went for a run yesterday. I will go for a run tomorrow, and I'm yogaing in the middle, and truth be told, my muscles are sore, right? So Deep Blue is not always something I do before we're on live together, but it is something I did today. I know I told you I'm gonna do these oils on camera, but y'all, I needed a Deep Blue like on my hip flexors and butt, and sorry, I'm not doing that on camera. That would be inappropriate. But I wanted to go ahead and mention it to you guys. If you have any kind of soreness in your joints or muscles related to movement or exercise, especially if you're in rock star status and you've been free motion quilting a lot, you know that soreness we can get in our shoulders from just using our muscles, and we want to help our muscles heal and move back to a place of wholeness and balance and not being sore, right? Deep Blue is your friend. It brings an immediate sense of relief, but it also actually aids your body as it's returning to that kind of healthy state, right? So love rubbing this on. Now remember, my giveaway today is Deep Blue oil. This oil is in this rub, and what you'll do if you have this is you'll mix just a couple of drops, just like 1 or 2, literally 1 or 2. Little goes a long way because essential oils are very, very potent. In, you know, like a nickel to quarter size bit of lotion in your hand, and then you'll use it on your body, right? External use only, please, for both of these, okay? All right, so I am going to do some yoga for self-care. There's a couple of things going on. First of all, it's cloudy outside, right? And Sue and I have been discussing this fairly extensively in the Essential Oils Rockstars group, and weather matters for our mood. It's hard. Now, I'm gonna just say, Sue, you've got it rougher because you have snow on the ground, right? It's like 63 and cloudy, so it could be worse, right? But cloudiness, I feel kind of cramped. I get almost claustrophobic when it's cloudy. Now, if it's once in a blue moon, I get that kind of cozy, I'm gonna just pull my quilt up and read a book feeling. But we've had a lot of rain this winter, and so I'm feeling kind of claustrophobic and stir crazy with the clouds right now. I'm really looking forward to those bright blue skies that are just high, and I just feel like my heart could go on forever into the void, right? Oh, pouring rain. Oh no, Sue. And so the first thing I'm gonna do with that is I have brought down some peace. This is the Reassuring Blend. So when I get kind of stir crazy, I start to feel anxious, right? I have peace going in the diffuser right now. The primary ingredient in this is vetiver oil, which is just the most beautiful calming aroma ever. Now I also brought down this roller of the peace because I'm going to put on just a couple of trigger points. I'm going to put it on my wrists, and that means that as I'm moving my hands, it's going to be bringing that aroma up to my face. I'm also going to put it right over my heart, right? Center of our emotions going on here, right in our heart. And so y'all have heard me talk about this. I talked about it a lot in December right after my friend Mary died, that when I get that tight, anxious feeling, peace helps me release it, right? The Reassuring Blend. So I started with peace today. Now I'm gonna start at my feet and work up with oils that are most grounding to oils that are most elevating, okay? So I actually brought down vetiver that I'm gonna put on my feet. When we're doing yoga, one of the things is that we're grounding our body. We're finding that center. Now this is what we do when we quilt too. We're often like bringing our emotions back to a place of homeostasis, right? This kind of balanced feeling, whether we go in there feeling a little wired or feeling a little anxious. Often we go to our sewing room in order to feel centered again, right? And when I say grounding, that's what I mean. That's that feeling of whatever's going on right now, it's all gonna be okay, right? And this is that big exhale before you do something challenging, right? So if you're like me anyway, when you try a new free motion quilting technique, the first thing, you get your hands on that quilt or on that practice swatch, right? You're getting ready to press the pedal, but right before you press down on your pedal, you go, right? That long, deep exhale. And that's centering yourself. You're focusing, right? So I'm getting ready to, as I'm doing yoga today, I'm going to spend the afternoon and the evening in creativity and working on my business. And so I'm going to start with focusing on the things that lie ahead of me, right? I'm going to do that with some vetiver oil. Now I'm using these oils. Now there's chemical stuff that's going on with these oils in our bodies. These oils are derived from plants. Plants are carbon-based. People are also carbon-based. And so what that means is that these, chemically, these oils work with our bodies really beautifully. I just put a little bit of almond oil in my hand to dilute this a little bit, right? So there are chemical things going on where these oils are affecting my emotions, but some of them is simply, to some extent, I'm just using these as a tool, right? That I'm training my body, because this association of smell, vetiver super thick, that's why this is taking forever. The association of smell is really powerful with our body, so I'm training my body to associate certain smells with certain emotions, right? And I associate, or have associated, and I'm continuing to associate vetiver with a sense of calmness and grounding, right? And I'm just gonna rub this all over my feet. Now there's all kinds of science and reflexology around specific points on the feet. My knowledge in that arena is still limited, so for the time being, I'm just gonna massage it all over my feet, right? Now, I'm sitting on the floor, but if you're going, HollyAnne, there ain't no way I'm getting down on the floor to do any of this, do this on your bed. You could do this on your bed, including the stretches we're gonna do. I'm gonna try to focus on stretches that you could do at least to some extent on your bed, particularly if you have a firmer mattress. If you have like one of those mattresses that just kind of folds in half around you, this will be a lot harder. But assuming you have a relatively firm bed, a lot of what we're doing together today, you could do on your bed before you get up in the morning. You could do on your, if you get up from quilting and you're like, I really need to stretch, but if I get down on the floor, I'm gonna be stuck like forever. You could go to your bed. Before you go to bed at night, these are great things to do, right? Okay, so I've got vetiver on my feet as a grounding, and now I'm gonna go up to my head and I'm gonna use frankincense. Frankincense, this is very interesting. So remember, everything, all matter is moving, right? We learned this in chemistry class when you look at an atom and you have the nucleus, and then you have protons and electrons, and they're moving around that nucleus, right? So everything is moving, everything around us. If you've read A Wrinkle in Time, then you might remember the way that they could, that they walked through, they basically could walk through a wall inside, I'm gonna blank on the name of the planet, but it was basically this concept of really all solid things are mostly air. It's just because atoms are moving around that we feel them as solid. Same thing with our bodies, right? And everything is moving at a different rate. So frankincense, this oil moves really fast. It means it has a high frequency, right? And so this is an oil that I find very lifting. And I like to put it right on the top of my head. It gives me this kind of little sit-up straight feeling. I put it right on my forehead, and then I put it on the back of my spine. So I like to use this around my central nervous system. I especially do this if I really need to focus on something, like free motion quilting or writing. If I have a headache, which for me is usually a physical thing that's going on, but this helps bring some relief to any kind of tension that I've got. And so it's not so much that it's fixing, it's that it's calling blood flow and giving me something else to focus on and all of those good things, right? Okay, so now I feel very grounded in my feet, I feel very lifted in my head, and I'm gonna put wild orange in the middle. Now, remember I started with peace oil because I needed some reassurance today. If it's sunny and you feel like $1,000,000, you might wanna do cheer instead. So diffuse cheer, put cheer in your hands, right? Let's see, I realize I'm falling behind on this. Sun and blue skies and pouring. Oh my heavens, Amy, what a mix. High winds, oh wow, Kimberly. Yay, Rhoda, your order's coming. Yay, 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 yay. All right, wild orange. Now this one I'm simply putting on my hands to breathe it, okay? This is one of the brightest oils. It can be called the oil of abundance. And what I love about that is, of course I love that as a business person, right? Because I always want my business to be growing and flourishing, but I also love it emotionally. Emotional abundance, an abundance of joy, an abundance of opportunity, an abundance of community, right? There's a lot of things we can attach to wanting abundance in our lives. So I love to breathe that in before I stretch. Okay, now notice I have my legs straight out in front of me and I'm sitting up tall. Got my frankincense to encourage me to sit up. And we're gonna start by doing the simple twist that April walked us through, okay? I love this because it just begins to loosen up my back. And remember, as I'm talking through this, it takes a lot longer to do than if you're just doing it, right? Notice I'm completing the twist with my neck. That's why I'm turning away from you guys, because I want to bring those muscles all the way around. And then I'm going to lift up, and I'm going to forward fold. Now, my forward fold, before I even do this, I'm going to talk you through this. My forward fold is very folded, okay? I have a background as a pre-professional ballerina, and I love being flexible. Your forward fold might look like this, right? You might get just a little bit of bend in those hips and go, oh yeah, I feel that all the way up the back of my legs. So I'm just gonna pause here. That's fine, okay? It's okay if you can't touch your feet. If you do this regularly, every time you'll find yourself being able to bend a little bit more. This is especially good if, oh no, Marianne, it's okay. You'll get the replay in a bit. This is especially good for those of you that have mobility concerns, and even things like walking are really difficult right now. Just beginning to move your joints again and move them more is gonna help, okay? Now, I am sitting, and we have talked about how sitting is the new smoking. But this is still a step in the right direction because we're doing this kind of active sitting where we're engaging our muscles, right? If you have a lot of issues with mobility, especially through your hips as we're doing this, put your deep blue on before you start stretching and allow it to help your muscles relax, okay? Now I've lifted, I'm bending from my hips, and I'm gonna fold, right? What we don't want is to curve like this, right? We don't wanna make a C with our body. We want our body to be very flat. Think literally of a hinge, right? So your hips are your hinge, and whether you're hinging here or you're hinging here, I'm not worried about the angle. I'm worried about your back being flat and you getting an engaging stretch along the back of your legs, okay? And then hold that stretch and inhale and exhale, and inhale and exhale. And stay there for a few breaths, okay? And then I'm gonna lift my body partially and just tug on my toes. Oh, y'all can't see my toes. Let me back up so you can see my toes. And then I just like to tug on my toes a little bit and get a little extra stretch right in my calf muscles, right? All right, we're gonna do that whole thing again. We're gonna do that twist. And I highly recommend this Quilters, especially if you spend multiple hours a day quilting. For every hour you quilt, I want you to spend 10 minutes stretching, okay? It can be really gentle, and that 10 minutes might include you finish your hour of quilting, you take 5 minutes to stand up, go to the bathroom, go downstairs, get some water. Water is absolutely critical to our wellness, right? Drink, say, 8 ounces of water, go back upstairs, and then spend 5 minutes stretching, right? But for every hour that you spend sitting at your machine or your computer or your desk or wherever, try to spend 10 minutes moving, okay? All right, come back up. Move my neck around a little bit. Roll your shoulders back a couple of times. Oh, Amy, that's so good. Oh yeah, y'all are so far ahead of us. I forgot that. It's what, 5.5 hours? Okay, now this is called cobbler's pose or butterfly. Again, I am very flexible. Please do not be intimidated by that. If your butterfly is here, that is okay. Because again, the more you do this, gravity is going to begin to loosen up those joints. The activity of stretching will loosen up. Now, you may not ever be at a 180 butterfly. That's okay, right? Just want you to practice this pose. Again, sit up straight and gently lean forward, okay? As far as you are able. Again, if you are here and you simply just lean forward a little bit, that's totally fine. Just make sure that your back is staying straight and that you're treating your body like a hinge, okay? And again, hold this for several breaths. come up. Now, I like to return to this forward fold between a lot of stretches when I'm on the ground. Because for me, I have a lot of issues with especially the flexibility right behind my knees, but also down in my calves. So I like to make sure that I'm keeping those muscles really, really long. Your hip flexors connect at the front of your hips and they come around to your back. It's a huge part of how your hips move. But that also means if you're having back pain, that can be related to your hip flexor. It also means making sure everything else back there is nice and stretched out can really help, okay? You're gonna get kind of the top end of those hip flexors when you're folding. All right, now, lay down with me. All right. And again, keep your abs engaged even as you're laying down. Let me make sure, yeah, y'all can see. Okay, so don't make sure your body is straight, essentially, and bring one knee up to your chest. Now what you'll see that we're doing here is when we're sitting, right, our hip tends to be at this right angle. And we have done a forward fold, which stretches this longer than it is when we're sitting, right? And we've done a twist, which moves some energy across. And now what we're doing is we're bringing our hip up further than it is when we're sitting. So what we're doing is we're increasing the overall range of motion of what's going on in our hips. The issue with sitting all the time is that your hip is always in this position, right? This right angle. And we want to increase that range of motion, right? So bring it way up. And then extending your leg and hold it just above the ground. Or if you're very flexible like me, you would typically put some blocks like under your butt to increase that angle and feel that stretch just right here for a second. Okay? And then lower it and do the other leg. A lot of these are the same stretches that we did with April. I'm just bringing them back to the top of your mind and showing you how to pair them with some oils, okay? And then again, hold it just off the ground and let it stretch. Now, if you can come on up. In order to stretch the front of this hip, hey Susan! So Rhoda, always listen to your body. This is a great question. So Rhoda asked, what if you have an old injury, in her case a knee, that is stiff over time? Okay, so a couple of things with that. One is before you do any kind of yoga, walking, anything, literally anything. In fact, I would consider doing this like before you get out of bed in the morning, right? I would take your deep blue rub, little pea-sized amount. I'm gonna assume it's your right knee. I don't know which knee it is. And I would, rub that deep blue all over, and then I would massage your knee. Okay, so I would massage down the sides of the joint, right? I would massage the muscles and tendons behind, right? And up above the knee to where all those muscles are that connect, and below, right? And I would do some gentle, just kind of movement of it. Keep your hands on it to support it. And I don't know if you have any kind of limited mobility, but let's say you can only bend this far, and whatever, but just encourage it to get its full range of motion. And this deep blue is gonna help your body to know massaging it. These are things that increase blood flow. And the biggest thing with preventing injury with any kind of exercise is to always make sure your muscles are warm. And what that means is that you've signaled your body to send more blood there, right? So for a knee or any kind of joint that you've got some additional stiffness in, and this is what I did. I put deep blue, like on my hips and quads and around the back because I ran yesterday and all that's kind of stiff, right? As I'm just signaling my body like, hey, send some extra blood there because we're gonna do some work, okay? And then just real gently begin to move it around. Be careful, especially if you've got an injury to it, that you're not doing anything when you're exercising that's gonna be torquing your knee, right? So make sure that it's a hinge, treat it like a hinge. Don't do any kind of twisting, okay? Let's see, Marianne, what'd you, getting on the floor. So Marianne, that's why I mentioned that if you're more comfortable doing this on a bed, go for that. Again, as long as you don't have one of those mattresses that just like folds in half around you like a taco. Like if it's a relatively firm bed, start on the bed if the floor is not your jam. I am very aware of the fact that I am 27 and I love being on the floor. I've also kind of always loved being on the floor. But again, I'm young, getting on the floor is not a big deal. So if it is a big deal, utilize something else like a bed. Some of these that we've talked about, things like forward fold and bringing your hip to your chest, you can do that on the couch, right? So take advantage of that. I have not done chair yoga, but a lot of what we're doing right now, you could be doing in a chair, right? Bringing your hips up, stretching your leg out, and using that chair for stability. Absolutely. All right, let's see, we've done our hips. Okay, other things I'm gonna talk to you about. One, we have not straight up stretched the front of this hip, right? And this is where, Rhoda, for your knee, be very careful with this, because the primary ways that we can move that hip flexor can involve moving our knee. Let me make sure this text I'm getting is not from my mother. Okay, it is not. So there's a couple of things we can do. These are harder. And if you're like, yeah, there ain't no way, then that's okay. It's okay if you're like, I can't do that yet. All right, you can either work towards it. If you are wanting some alternatives, if I come across any, I will let you know. But also if you have a physical therapist or a doctor, you could ask, hey, I'm really interested in stretching the front of my hip flexor because I know I sit a lot. Do you have some recommendations that might work for my body? Right? Okay, but there's 3 primary stretches that I use. The first 2 are on the floor, one leg at a right angle. Simply stretch the other one out behind you, right? Let me do this at an angle so you guys can see it. So I'm simply stretching it out and I'm allowing gravity to pull that. You see the curve of my body there? That it's forcing this hip flexor kind of the other way, right? And stretching it out. Notice I'm using my hands on the floor for stability. In yoga, there's a lot of, with the warrior poses, where you'd actually be bearing your weight on your legs. So something more like this, you might have your hands, right? But that uses a lot of muscles and requires a lot of strength. And right now I'm really just interested in encouraging you guys to move your muscles and stretch them out, right? So use the floor for stability, stretch that hip flexor out. And then if you want to take it to the next level, again, Rhoda, mind your knee, dear. You can bend it up. Everything I'm telling you, listen to your body. If you go to try something and you're like, there ain't no way, then don't do it. Please do not injure yourself. The whole point here is to prevent injury and encourage health, not to push ourselves beyond what we're comfortable or able doing, right? All right, and then I switch and do the other leg. Always do to one side what you do to the other. Your body is an algebra equation. I can't believe I just said that because I really don't like algebra, but it is. You want to do one to one side what you do to the other. Make sure that you're always in balance. All of this is about balance, right? Okay, and then again, this is a situation where I'll return to forward fold. Oh, Kimberly, I hope when I'm 50 that I love being on the floor. That would make me really happy. I love being on the floor. I had a call with my doTERRA team earlier this week, and I was just like, I'm just hanging out on the floor, don't mind me. All right, return to forward fold. Because again, I stretched the front of my legs. I'm gonna take another moment to stretch the back of my legs. And I'm actually gonna lift this all the way up, and then I'm gonna bring my hands behind me and clasp them and stretch them down towards the ground. And what that's doing is opening up my chest. If you've been doing a lot of quilting, a lot of sitting at your machine, you probably have allowed your shoulders to curve. Even though we talk a lot about avoiding that, it can be really difficult, right? All right. And again, you can do these standing up as well. You could do that forward fold from a standing position. You could do your hands down from a standing position. The other thing you can do for your hip flexor, I'm going to stand up to show you, is if you balance on one leg, you may want to hold onto a wall or a chair or something, and you can bring your leg up and stretch the front of that hip flexor. Which yours might, you might go, okay, I'm good, like I can feel it, right? Again, I have very flexible hip flexors, so I'm going to be really leaning into it in order to feel it. And then the other side. You might just go here, or you might bring it on up, right? All right, and then I always end, remember, if I were doing these stretches just in a row and not talking through them, this would maybe be 5, 6, 7 minutes tops. This would not be very long, right? I'd probably do some downward dog in there too. And then I always like to end with some breathing. Sometimes that's standing. If you see in my stories, I often will put time lapses of me doing some yoga. And you may notice that there's a couple seconds at the end where I'm simply standing there and you're like, what is she doing? She's just standing there. I always take some time to breathe, right? Especially if I'm doing yoga in order to move myself into the next task. Maybe I'm moving, Connie, chair yoga sounds like a great plan. Do what you are able to do, and instead of trying to push yourself to do something beyond your comfort zone, just simply encourage yourself to do it more often, right? And even just doing a few things each day. I really encourage you guys to stretch every day. I sometimes practice what I preach on that front, right? I try. Hey, Lydia! Oh, Sue Marie, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Okay, so if I am doing yoga in order to move myself into a task, I might be, maybe it's the end of the day and I'm tired, but I need to go work on something. I might take some time to do some yoga in order to energize my body, right? Remember, doing yoga, stretching, walking, running, any kind of movement encourages blood flow throughout our body, which includes to our brain. This is why it's really relevant for things like creativity, right? We're increasing blood flow to our brain. Our brain is making happier hormones, right? Simply doing yoga. I know, Sue, we were talking about kind of weather, seasonal, mood management, all that kind of stuff. Yoga with your oils is an amazing way to help boost your brain and allow it to make those happy substances on its own, right? So I'm using Peace today, the reassuring blend, but maybe you choose Cheer, which is the uplifting blend. Maybe you choose Elevation. Maybe you choose Motivate, right? Like you could choose oils that are lifting. If this were the end of the day and I were trying to get my butt back up out of my armchair to go do some stuff, I would probably be using Cheer, right? Something that's really gonna wake my brain up and encourage that blood flow. And again, that wild orange that I use would be very good. So I always end with breathing. If I'm moving myself into a task, during that breathing, I'm gonna be thinking about the task ahead, and I'm gonna go, okay, my first step is this, my second step is this, and then things are, it'll just kind of keep going from there, right? Or I'm gonna talk myself through why getting this task done is important, which could be as simple as, I told myself I would do it, right? Like last night I had a quilt that I needed to put on the long arm and get started, and I was so tired, y'all. The afternoon had gone kind of crazy, and all I wanted to do, honestly, was curl up in bed or eat cake. Like those were the two things I was willing to do. And I needed to go put this quilt on the long arm and start quilting it. And the primary reason was because I told myself I would do it, right? And keeping your word to yourself matters a lot, right? It matters a lot for your self-esteem. It matters a lot, for your productivity on some level, but the biggest thing is that trust relationship with yourself. It's hard, think about it this way. If you were a friend and you had this friend that she said, oh yeah, I'll get that quilt started by the end of the day, and she didn't, even if it's not actually a big deal, like it doesn't really make a difference if she starts that quilt today or tomorrow, even if it's not that big a deal, trust is eroded there just a little bit, right? And if that friend does little things like that often enough, then when she starts to tell you, oh, I'm gonna do that by blank, or I'm gonna whatever, you start to think, yeah, right. And not only is your trust eroding with that friend, but your respect for them is eroding. To some extent, your ability to like them is eroding. It gets really frustrating when someone doesn't keep their word, right? The same thing happens with ourselves. So if I tell myself, I'm gonna get that quilt loaded on the long arm and get started on it today, and get started on it in the case of last night, meant like 1.5 passes. Like it wasn't like a lot, right? Like it was barely started. But I told myself I would do it. And if I hadn't done it, I would have gone to bed thinking things like, oh, HollyAnne, you can't even like do what you said you're gonna do. Oh, HollyAnne, why do I even bother telling you that I'm gonna do stuff? I would just, it opens the door for negative self-talk. and it erodes that little bit of trust. And then it becomes harder to trust yourself, trust your ability. It becomes harder to like yourself. And all of that's part of self-care too. That's part of our emotional well-being. So in the case of last night, I was doing some yoga to bolster myself up to go start this quilt because I was going to keep my word to myself, dang it, right? It could be that you have a hard conversation you need to have. Maybe your kid's coming home from school and you need to have a hard talk about something the teacher called you about, right? It could be whatever the thing that's coming. Or it could be that it's the end of the day, you had a really beautiful day and you're doing some yoga and you just want to reflect on your blessings. It could be that you've got a really hard situation going on and you need to spend some time in prayer. This is an awesome way to do it, right? Prayer, meditation, giving thanks, all of these things, whatever fits your worldview. For me, that's a lot of prayer, right? It's hard to focus on. Our brains are programmed to go in 37,000 different directions at all times. This is why, I don't know about you guys, but like I have to practically hide my phone in order to get sewing done because it's just so hard to focus on one thing. The thing that has made the biggest difference in my life and for my prayer life is to do yoga first and then at the end to pause and while I'm breathing to pray, right? And so what that looks like if I'm on the floor is I'm simply sitting here breathing. Now, what this might mean for you is maybe you need to encourage yourself. From a biblical perspective, I want you to look at the Psalms and look at how much David does self-talk, right? If you don't come from a biblical worldview, I want you to basically look at every quality self-help book out there that talks about the value of self-talk, right? Our mental game is everything. So taking time here, whether you're praying or maybe you're just self-talking, both of those are powerful things. Both of them are important. Right? You might be telling yourself, I can totally do this feather meander. I've watched the video. I've done the doodle. I'm going to do it on this practice swatch. And then I'm going to do it on that quilt. That quilt is going to look awesome because I am a quilting rock star. Right? This is a good thing to do for yourself. Pep yourself up, speak encouraging words over yourself the same way you would over a friend, right? So that's beautiful, Kimberly. I do too. It's also it's the same kind of thing, right? Yoga is meditative. Quilting can be very meditative, and those are excellent opportunities for prayer. All right, so guys, again, my challenge for you is for every hour you spend in a chair, whether that's at your machine or it could be reading a book, I want you to spend 10 minutes moving. Take at least maybe 5 to do things like go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, drink way more water than you think you need to drink, right? The recommendation I've been hearing lately is half your body weight in ounces of water a day. I probably drink my body weight in ounces of water a day, truth be told, okay? That's also very related to the circulation thing, right? Our bodies are like 80% water or something. I've been seeing all these funny memes lately about like, you need to get sunshine and drink water because you're basically a houseplant with really complicated emotions. Things like that. I actually put that in one of the blogs I shared with you guys today. And it cracked me up because on some level, yes, right? Things like sunlight and movement and water all matter to our bodies, to our physical well-being, but our physical well-being and our emotional and spiritual well-being are very, very tied together. And our creativity is right in the middle of all of that, okay? So today, if you have not stretched with me already, I encourage you to go stretch now. I encourage you to drink more water, to eat well, and if you have not dived in, whatever, jumped in, fumbled by a verb at the very end. Oh well, if you've not jumped in with essential oils yet, I would be delighted to talk to you more about that. You can reach me either at stringandstory@gmail.com or you can go through the form at stringandstory.com/doTERRA, and I would be delighted to do a one-on-one call with you and talk about how essential oils can benefit your life and get you started, because I want you to be your best, most beautiful self so that you can quilt and live with confidence. Guys, thank you so much for joining today. Sumery, I try to drink 1 bottle of water for every cup of coffee. It's actually the same ratio that I use if I'm drinking alcohol. I try to drink a bottle of water for a glass of wine, right? Which there's rarely more than one, but it's all about ratios, right? So pause between cups of coffee and guzzle 8, 16, 24 ounces of water, and that'll help a lot. All right? Have a great day, loves. Mwah. And I will see you tomorrow night inside the Quilting Rockstar.